Well, greetings. I'm so glad to see some of you are eager to continue your photography through the summer. I've also sent this video to those of you who won't be back until September, only because it represents or references the September plan. So going forward, hopefully we will have a proper meeting on September 2nd, and we'll be following the proper new normal regulations, of course, guidelines, 50 feet apart. So I'll be sending out the assignment for September, probably the first or second week of August. For those of you who want to participate, have something to show in the first meeting. So as we emerge from our chrysalis and spread our wings a little bit, I thought a good assignment would be street photography. This is a field we haven't dealt in before because of the weather and such, but it's quite an interesting area, and you might consider capturing something that kind of captures the pandemic, which is an historic event. Might be fun looking at later on after it's gone. So following me right now will be a clip from Chris Marquardt. I was able to find this in last month's podcast. It seems it's pretty good, kind of relevant to what we're doing. And then below there'll be a link to some tutorial tips. It's a good video on street photography. So with that, I'll turn it over to Chris Marquardt, and we'll see you soon, I hope. Okay, bye.
That's what I've done. I've moved things into the virtual world. You can get the thing you see right in front of you here in a personal session. So
you, the man, the myth, the legend.
Personally, yes. That's what I do. So I keep teaching, but I teach in front of in a virtual classroom setting, which is very nice and very functional, and anything goes.
So today we're going to talk about light.
Yes, because everyone has a camera, and I'm not talking about the big DSLRs and the mirrorless cameras. No, everyone has a camera in the pocket, and photography isn't really about the tech that much, especially as the cameras in your pocket are really good. So I have looked at what makes photography, what makes good photos, and yes, it's the stories and everything, but the light is kind of key all the time. So I would like to look over a few very typical light situations and give a few hints about them. So I sent you a link to a Flickr gallery, which you can put in the show notes so everyone else can look along. And it's just a bunch of photos in there of different light situations. So when we start at the beginning, of point light source. What is a point light source? Well, the sun is one. So if you're out and the sun is out there, you don't need anything fancy. And if a photographer tells you don't shoot at noon, don't believe him, because you get really interesting hard shadows, geometric shapes. It's a really great thing to play with these kind of things. Same with the second photo. You can tell just the shape of the shadows, the edges of the shadows are very hard. So that is a sunlight photo. And if you combine that with some geometric shapes, you got a winner. Black and white helps here too. So that photo is like of a factory floor that's being built or something, with all the repetition and all the lines. And a point light source, like the sun, brings that out.
That's just a
Brings it out
single
really well.
point of light.
A single bright point of light. It could be indoors. It could be just a bare light bulb. That does the same thing. It makes hard shadows, and it is a very edgy kind of light. Literally edgy. When you look at the shadows, there's all these edges that it brings out. If we go the complete different direction, we turn that point light source into a big surface, into a big lit surface. Like, well, in the case of the photos in this gallery, the next one is in a car showroom of sorts, which is one big white lit box, and you cannot really tell that there's that much shadow. No harsh shadows. Very soft reflections, very soft surfaces, awesome for portraiture. The hard point light source is not that good for portraiture. Sometimes it's a bit, unflattering.
Although you could mix them. You could mix them, couldn't you? For
You can
portraiture?
mix them. You can use one big light source, one small light source.
Right.
Next photo is the same out in nature, overcast sky. That's a big light source that turns everything into, it gives everything just a different quality than the harsh light. And it's easier on the camera, and it's sometimes easier to compose.
Clouds are like a soft box.
Clouds are a huge softbox in
Yeah,
the sky. Makes
yeah.
very soft light.
Yeah, I like it.
If you go on one photo, and this one is an interesting one. We're looking at an indoor scene in a factory type building, and there are 2 point light sources in there. But what they do is they bounce off of a wall behind them. So what does that wall do? It turns those point light sources into bigger light sources. Just the reflection is bigger, and that gives that interesting mixed quality that you just talked about. You have direct light from the point light sources, but then you also have the soft light from the softer surfaces. So that's something to look out for.
Reflectors are a great way to kind of change the light. You can even use something of just a material to reflect, right?
Use a white bed sheet, a white sheet of paper, a bit of styrofoam, something like that is amazing ways to make a point light source into a bigger light source.
This is nice. This is kind of a yellow mosaic wall, and as a result, it's reflecting the whiter light from the lamps and making it kind of golden. I really like the effect. Yeah,
very nice effect.
Yeah.
Then the next thing is the direction of the light. If you look at light, well, light can come from anywhere, but it turns into really interesting features if it comes from above or behind. So in the case of this photo, that's in a jail somewhere that we visited as a travel group, and this is only a big skylight, light coming from above, but now you get all these reflections off of the railings and things that really brings it out. The next photo, a similar situation, but outdoors. There's light coming from behind, and that just makes for a more interesting light situation than when the light's coming from the front.
Whenever you take a picture, you're taking a picture of light. But what you're helping us with is being aware of it and what it's doing in the picture.
Look around. Interesting light is everywhere, and as soon as you see interesting light, that's when you want to shoot. Indoors, light that's coming in through a window. The next picture is a point light source, the sun, but it's outside coming in through a window and casting an interesting spot of light on the floor. Not just that spot of light is the only light source in that room. So that lights the rest of the room, and it makes a really, really interesting.
So this is in a castle or somewhere, and you've got bullseye glass. So one of those old-fashioned windows, and that's the only source of light is light from the outside. You see the reflection of the window or the shadow, I guess. What do you call that? The window's shape projected, a projection.
It's a projection. Yeah, it's a projection.
On the floor. And that really gives it a moody, interesting look, because you can barely see the walls, but you kind of know you're in a castle of some kind.
One last interesting light situation. You want to jump forward like 5-6 photos is what I call volume light. And that's when there is mist in the air or smoke in the air, something like that. And then you add a point light source into that, like the sun coming in through the sky, through a hole in the clouds.
Beautiful effect. So there's mist, there's clouds, there's a bright sun, and it's a beautiful effect. Yeah. Really.
So look out for these things. And when you see something like that and your mind goes, oh, that looks interesting, that's when you want to take your camera out. Listen to that little voice in yourself that says, oh, this looks interesting. And it's usually because light is interesting. And if you're not driving on the highway, then yeah, or pull over if you can and take that photo.
Yeah, I always want to bring my camera with me everywhere because you never know when you're going to be driving along and see a picture like this. These are beautiful,
and often
tall
you cannot
redwoods.
plan these things.
No,
it's
that's
hard
right.
to plan this kind of stuff. So
you just have. I think part of it for me is developing the eye so that, and always having a camera, and then developing the eye. And by the way, nowadays with modern smartphones, you do, if you carry your phone with you, if you have a good
you have
smartphone,
amazing cameras with you.
you always have a good camera with you. And then it's developing the eye so that. I notice this when I'm thinking about photography. As I'm walking around, I'm always looking to see interesting shapes, interesting lighting, interesting reflections.
That's why I've brought some examples, because people need to look at photos. And then when you look at a lot of photos, you find the good light yourself.
He is the photo sensei. Thank